Recordando. Sweet. All right. So we are up to toggle views. All right, just move this over here. Toggle views, minimize that. Here's our server. And toggling the views is going to require that we pass a view down. So let's take a look at the last thing that we did was in, stretch this out a little bit, was here we passed down current view. So currently right now, current view is to do. We're passing down current view as a prop. And both are being passed down as to do. So there has to be, obviously, these two have to be in sync together, and this is the thing that keeps them in sync. They're both referencing the same thing. As long as they reference the same thing, they'll get the same value. They make the decision based on that particular value what to do. So let's start with, we're going to go into the header, right? So let's set up the header. And inside of the header, we are going to give our header, right? We want our title as an H1 and to toggle dependent on the views, right? So just make sure the header here, yeah, all right. So in here, we're going to add a div with a class name and title. Now, all of these divs and class names are meant for the styling. All the styling that's coming from here is all done so because of those classes, right? So we want to make sure we keep that styling. We're only going to be able to keep it if we add these classes. So inside of this header div, I'm going to put a div, give it a class name equal to title. I'm going to close the div. I always try to open and close things so that I'm never left with open anything. Let me see. I'm not sure what that's saying. This one. Header, title. You know what? I don't know if it's this title. That? No. I'll take a look at that later. And so now what we're going to do is do our conditional logic, right? So this title should either say to do, right here, to-do list, or completed list. That's what it should say, all right? So let's give it an H1. Close the H1. And inside of the H1, we're just going to reference the prop that was passed down. Current view, that's what was passed down. Our conditional logic is going to be, hey, if that value that's passed down was to do, well then, I'm going to go here, structure this nicely, question mark. We will then do to-do list, is that it? To-do list, yeah. And if it's not, then we say completed list, right? Completed list, right? I don't know, I'm gonna throw this H2 in here only because it's in the lecture. We might be using this later. So I'm just gonna say yes, another one, right? I'm gonna save it. Parsing on unexpected tokens. So something here tells me there's going to be.
Forgot a caret, Joe.
What's that?
You forgot.
Oh, at the end of this. That's right. Okay. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to go here. Oh, look, to-do list. Right? Now, the only way to truly test this out would be to change it. So if it's to do, which means, quite honestly, if it's anything else but to do, I get rid of that, it'll say completed, right? If I put back the O, it'll go back, oh, sorry. It'll go back to to-do list. Doesn't really matter what you put in here now, as long as it's not to do, right? So in the end, it could have been true or false, could have been it's. I know some of you during this morning's mock-ups were saying, I'm going to set it to false. This could be anything. It doesn't really matter. We're going to set it to be something specific because we want to know, is it to do or is it to complete it, right? I think the only thing here to remove in app would be the H1. We don't really need the H1 anymore here in the app because the header is really doing the thing for us now, right? So our header should look like this. Here's our entire header. Toggle it and make sure it works, okay? You can put whatever you want in state. Just make sure that it toggles between the two and you're not getting any errors. Should be fairly simple. And as part of the design too, right? Here's our design, okay? Zoom in on our design. You get to zoom out. Here's our current view. That is being passed down to header, right? Current view is also being passed down to props. So I put a prop here for current view. So both of them are being passed down, so now the assumption would be, now that we've done header and shown how to toggle, next thing would be to do task list, right? Go to task list and change this current view here, right? Both being passed down. So we could go ahead and do that. I wonder if I changed the color. I wanted to like maybe change this color so that they both pop. Never mind. I was going to try to associate this with this. So when you see the colors, you see that they're both being passed down. Okay? We're not going to do that. Okay? We did wrap them in a note. One of the other things, we're still not finished yet with our to-do, because our to-do header, I'm sorry, we're not finished with the header. The header still has this, right? And that's, in essence, part of like a navigation. That's what we're going to kind of call it here. We're navigating between the two. Really could be a navigation, right? If it was across the top and it looked like that, would be more in alignment with what a navigation bar would look like, but navigations can be on the side. And so in our header here, we're going to add ULs so that we can keep track of that information also. Okay, so in our header, I'm going to add a UL. I'm going to close the UL. And I'm going to add an LI. And I'll say to do, close the LI, and add an LI. Oh, add an LI completed. And we have that. Okay. Just going to go back and take a look. Looks like it should be over here. I'm going to assume maybe I've got some styling in the wrong place. I think I see where it is. This UL, no, the UL is in the right div.
Joe, I think you have your H2 embedded in your H1.
The H2 is embedded in the H. Oh, you're right. H2 is embedded in the H1. I don't know if, is that it though? I think there may be one more thing. No, we have to move this over. What it looks like we're doing here is the first div, this div right here with the class of title, that closes the H1 and the H2. That's right. Let me do this. Just gonna make sure. Yeah, okay. Once again, it's a styling thing. So let me select this out because this is the, that was the design here. I was just off by a div. Okay, so we should look like this. Nicely aligned. Everything's where it needs to be. That's our div title. Collapse that. And move it to this UL. So maybe just move the UL just a little bit over. Boom. Once again, that's the structure right there. Okay. Nothing's happening. We can click on these. Nothing's happening for good reason. Haven't added any clicks to those things, right? So we have to either pass down a click event or attach a click event locally that calls a local method that then also calls a method that was passed down. So we could either pass one directly down to the click event and call it, or assign a click event that calls a local method that calls the parent method, okay? So we'll move on to the task list, okay? So the task list right here, it says the task list is a bit more complex than the header, since it's going to depend on the actual data. So yes, there's going to be more complexity for the task list. There's not so much going on in the header, and all it's going to do is toggle between the title and some numbers, right? And we'll add the events, but the task list is going to have a little bit more to be aware of, and it has to render a child component. So they'll be using .map to map over it. So if the current view is to do, right, we're going to display some text just for now that says this is the to-do list view. Otherwise, if the current view is completed, display some text that says, the completed list view, okay? We're going to change this later on to be the data. Right now, these are just kind of placeholders for us as we're doing this, right? So I'm going to go into the task list. Okay? And our task list right now just contains, this is the task list component. You don't really need that at this point in time. We're going to change that to the same thing. We are passing down this .props .current view, and that's going to equal to do. If it equals to do, we know it equals to do right now. If it is that, then we are going to say, here's a div, close the div, and we'll just say, what are we going to say here again? Be basic, right? This is the to-do list view. I don't know why it has in quotes. This is the to-do list view. And if it's not that, then we are going to say, I'm just going to copy this div and say this is the completed list view. Okay. Let me see here. I close this, close that. So something.
Hey, Joe.
Yep.
You just need to have a colon. You have 2 questions.
Oh, yes. I don't have the question mark. Okay. Great. There we go. Good. I'm going to go back. And this is the to-do list view. And I'm just going to change this in app just to make sure that this changes too, right? So if I do anything here in app that changes the current view, it should say, hey, this is the completed list view. And go back to it, to-do list view. So we know that the views toggle between each other. Okay? Easy enough. And when you're setting up your app for your project, maybe you start as simple as that. Put a few placeholders here. Look at a variable. Does it work? Awesome. We know that it's created, and all we have to do is add the additional functionality. But for the time being, that'll be enough to suffice that you know that it works. Okay? I think that's really important. Just knowing that the thing works at the most basic level. Pre-creating your methods and just adding like, hey, it's been clicked. Adding the click event without adding all the logic. Baby stepping it along the way, I think, is an important step when you're building out these things with all this complexity. So handle view. Handle view is going to go inside of app. So let's think this through. App, has current view. Current view is what's going to be changed. And so it makes sense that the method that mutates or resets current view would happen in app, okay? And it's going to be called handle view. I'm going to just go back to the diagram here. And in the diagram, I can only do this so big. I'm starting to put here the method. So as we put our methods, I'm going to do that. So handle view is going to change current view, right, in state. Let's just say that. So we know what this is going to be doing. That's handle view will be doing that. Awesome. Let's go back here, minimize this, and let's create this new method, right? Handle view. Handle view must take in something, right? View. Now, here's the thing. We can set state here. I'm going to propose just a question. If I do set state and I do current view, right? Whatever gets passed in. So now the thing needs to pass a value up. Current view needs to be to do, or it needs to be completed. These values, like this value of to do, being that it's lowercase, right? Do you think that we would be using that lowercase value to do any place? All right, I mean, I'm gonna go to the app itself, right? The functioning app, completed list, to do and completed, right? Well, it does look like they could be used here, right? But these are already inside of our HTML, so they're not really being used there. I'm just proposing, could you, if you saw this design, do you think there could be a better way to toggle between something? To toggle between, if we chose not to go with to do here, but we went with something like true or false. Does anyone have any ideas? That if we opted to do true or false on line 16, would we need to pass in anything to handle view? Does anybody have any ideas?
You could just use not view.
Not
Currently,
view, right? Yeah, that's where I was going. We're not doing that. We're, once again, we're going to stick with what's in Electro. I'm just kind of expressing to you that you could have done something like where, current view is equal to not, right, is equal to not current view. We'd have to do the whole set state, but I'm just trying to show you, if this was a true or false, you wouldn't need to pass anything in. You would just say it's true or it's false, right? It would be an easier assignment. Unless this value is truly being used in the app, I might opt to just do that as a true or a false, okay? But once again, this is how it is, and for good reason. Once again, more practice, setting state, understanding how things are connected, okay? So now that we have current view, what do we need to do with current view? What do you think we're gonna do with the current view? That's a method. Where does that method need to go? Who needs to get that? CJ, where does that method need to go? Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody wants to say it? Save CJ.
I was just going to say you just need to bind it.
We do need to bind it, right? So binding is going to be important here. Okay, let's bind it because we do have this dot set state. So we would error out if we did call it. So this dot handle view is equal to this dot handle view dot bind this, right? Okay. Where does handle view need to go? Who needs to get it?
Wait, don't we have to pass it down to the header
Okay, and
and the task list, just like we did with current view?
yeah, right? Because in the end, both the header and the task view need to do just that, right? So this has to be passed down. So if we go to header, right, the header has the current view, and we also need to pass down the handle view, and that's going to be equal to this dot handle view, right? And that also means that we're going to have to pass this down later. Well, you know what? I'm just going to say let's pass it down now also to task list. Even though we haven't hit that yet, we know that this has to happen, right? We're already here. Both of these need to get passed down, right? Task list and this. And considering that we're passing this down to task list, I'm going to go back to our mockup. And in our mockup, I do have current view, right? And here I'm also going to put handle view, right? That's also going to get passed down to task list. Just trying to keep track of everything. As we add stuff, let's put it here so we know what belongs where. This will be a great diagram later on when we look back at the app and look at all the complexity of it. All right. Now that we know that, let's go to the header and at least start working with the header. So the header has, okay, we have our to-do, and for this particular to-do, where this is where we're going to add the on-click. We're going to have our on-click event. Okay, so the on-click is going to be equal to this anonymous function, and the anonymous function is going to call this .props .handle view, and we have to tell it to do, right? And this is where I was saying, like, if we set it to be true or false, we wouldn't have to pass anything. We just say set it to the opposite of what it was, since we're only toggling between two things. But because now we're examining the exact value, we need to do this, right? And then for completed, same thing. We need to pass the same thing here, this whole on click, right? So I'm just going to copy this on click since we already know that's what it is. And instead of saying to do, we just say completed. All right, we pass it down. We clicked it. Okay. Does anyone have any other ideas? Like, how could we have executed this instead of executing it here? What would be another option to executing this method? It would require some overhead. We'd have to do more. Anybody have an idea?
Like using the indexes of what those LIs are to reference to do or completed.
That could.
Is that what you mean? Or
No, I was going more in the direction of this. What if we did have a method in here, and the method was like, you know, header, handle. Don't do this. I'm just giving you an alternative here. What if we had something like this, and this called the method, right? You could have something like that, and then down here, all you would need to do is this dot handle header handle view. I'm showing you that you can create its own method to call it, or you could do it in here. This just seems more appropriate because now I have to actually create another method and call the method down here. So we don't opt to do that. I'm just showing you. You may see it done like that, where the component itself has a method that handles all clicks inside of it. But click happens, it goes to its own handler, and its own handler makes a decision on what it should do. But sometimes within the class, you need to do other things that you don't need to pass up, but need to happen locally. If that's the case, this could have been an option.
can you real quick explain to me why we have to do an anonymous function on click for that to work properly? Why
Because,
does it,
okay, because of this. So say I take this. I'm just going to cut it out, and I'll put it down here, comment it out. All right, if I go back here and I do this, in order to execute a function, right, because that's what this is doing, is this not executing the function, correct?
yeah, it is.
Okay, so if we took it out of the anonymous function, if we did this, what happens there? What is the difference? Like, let's just take a look. Is it, oh, look, woof, I'm getting this can happen when a component repeatedly calls set state and component will update. This is brand new for you, right? Component will
Okay, so
update.
yeah, like this would just continuously run, is what you're saying.
Yes, So here's what happens. And I'm kind of glad you asked the question, right? When React renders, things get executed. This method will get executed. You're calling a function. It's no different than if I ran this code and I was like, I created a function here, and I was like, hey, function test, I spell that right? And I was like, whatever, and then I call the function test. Every time React runs, or every time the script loads, test gets run, correct? Every time. Script gets loaded, test runs. Script gets loaded, test runs. This same functionality here would happen inside of here because every time it gets rendered, this gets run. I output the li says run this code immediately, and it immediately runs. And now we're in this perpetual infinite loop. So
the anonymous function is saying until this is clicked, or wait until this is clicked and then run that function.
Bingo. It's a pause mechanism that's like, don't do anything until the thing is clicked and then call the function. Okay? Now, what we have seen though, you have seen things that have been passed down like this. Like, in app, are we not passing down a function here, right? Handle view is a function that we're passing down. But what we're not doing is calling the function. See the difference? Here would be the same thing. I'm calling the function. Here I'm passing down the function. Two different things. Calling the function will create this infinite loop. Passing down a function just as a function. Here's the code for the function, but don't run it. Just passes it down. Okay? And now it's there, which means if we did click on something, right? We passed this down. Did we pass this down yet? Let me see. Here we go. We got the things. All right. Seems pretty cool. I'm going to go here. Let us take a look. Completed list, to-do list. Oh, snap. That's pretty cool. Right? It affects both of these. This doesn't need a click event because this is getting the same value that these trigger. So these trigger something and they both happen. Pretty cool that we can do this with just a few lines of code, right? Looks nice that it's styled too. Awesome. Any questions on kind of what we just did? I'm just gonna make sure our thing is up to date, right? This looks good?
I have a question.
Sure.
When we call like handle view and we have to pass in view, why or where is view, like does that need to be the same as what like current view is equal to on the apps.js?
Yeah. So just think.
Those two have to be connected?
Yeah. This thing here, this prop that we're passing will execute this method, right?
Right.
This method takes in a value. And what we're doing is we're setting whatever you gave me, it's that value. So this view here will either be completed or to do, depending on which on click you did. And then the minute this thing gets executed, this .state executes. And I can't emphasize enough that updating state causes or initiates. Yeah, causes a re-render. And so this value will be different. It will be current view. I'm sorry, it's going to be completed, and then that causes this to re-render and any subcomponents to re-render.
So calling a view, you could call anything, and then it's just going to change.
Yeah.
Just so. Okay.
Yeah. Once again, maybe this is a good opportunity to do true or false. Maybe, right? I don't think in this design do we actually need to have a string of text. I almost think true or false would be a better option for this. That's all I'm saying, but we'd still have to update state. We'd still have to do that. We'd still have to pass down the function. The function would still need to run. Like this process still needs to happen, but we would be using true or falses to do that. Cool. Feeling good about it so far, right? React is fun stuff. React. Cool. So what are we going to do now? Now we're going to get into, like, I suppose, the fun stuff, right? That you've already done these ternary operators. You've done that. I mean, you've also done API calls. So it's not going to be like some new magical thing that we do under the hood. But what we're going to do now is fetch that data from the API server, display the data, and then configure cores in the Rails app. Okay, so now that we have our bare bones server, right, we need some data. Places we want to show this data is obviously the task list and the header. Can't stress it enough. Task list is going to be showing the number of to-dos or number of completed. That's where this value goes. And then we both know the task list shows this. Depending on that, it'll toggle between the two. So where do we want to fetch our data? We want to fetch our data from the Rails server. Once again, I know my Rails server is up and running, 3000. And if I do tasks, I get all my stuff, right? This is where the stuff resides. I got to get that into my app. So we need to do this, and then we'll toggle between the views. So let's get our data, okay? So we're going to use fetch to kind of grab our data. And we know fetch. What can we say about fetch? What do we know about fetch that was explained yesterday? Where does fetch come from?
ESX.
Yeah, it's the new way to make an API call that comes pre-built with ES6. And you're going to see fetch used a lot in React, but you're also going to see other API call-based NPM packages like Axios is another big one. Those two kind of flip-flop between. In the day class, we flip-flop between what lecture I'm teaching that day. If it was a lecture I had a year ago and we were using Axios, we use Axios. If it was fetch, we use fetch. Either one, they're both pretty predominantly used. And so when we fetch data, right, we fetch, we put the URL there, then we got the data, right? What happened here? What did that do? What does that do? I know somebody out there knows.
Isn't that the line that converts the data into an object?
Correct, right? Because how is the data sent to us? As what?
Not an object.
I love it. That's like the safe bet there. I don't think you could have like
Parsed.
safe. But what is it? What data type is it?
Parse data?
No, parse data is what .json does.
Oh, okay.
You're throwing out there the parse.
String.
It comes back as a string to us from the server because the server stringifies it, and then we parse it. And so that's what's happening under the hood, right? I think, Matthew, you had looked and were console logging. You're like, why is this thing, or CJ, somebody was doing it. It was CJ, like, I don't see the data. I don't see it either. It's doing it under the hood. We don't see it. So we do that. This is our first response to the promise. This is a promise. Then we do this. Then we do that. And then we just have a catch in case something happens, right? Easy enough. That's how we use that. Let's go fetch. And I don't know, I think it's a no-brainer. Where should fetch reside inside of this little thing here?
In the app.
In the app, right? So here, I'm going to put the method that we're going to use here because we are going to use it, fetch tasks, okay? And so this will fetch data from API server, okay? Just want to put it there. Now I have it. Now we can go back and create this. So in app, we had handle view. So I'm going to go down here and say, hey, I'm going to create a new method, fetch tasks Boom. Okay, I'm gonna call fetch. And fetch is like, hey, where do you want to go? Well, I want to go to HTTP, not S, local host 3000 / tasks. Okay? Awesome. What do you want to do when I get it? Well, when I get it, then, you know, I'd like you to take whatever data you get. Now, in yesterday's class, we did it like response.json. This could be whatever. Data. I almost always, when I write this, I almost always do this. Res, kind of a throwback to like Node and Express. Res, response, right? Res and rec. I almost do res and then this. Res.json. Okay? Usually how I write it. I'm going to do it, what's in the lecture, so no one gets lost. Okay? I'll do it as data. But if you ever look in my code, you'd see that it's res. Hey, then after you do that, that'd be great. Thank you for parsing the data for me. That's awesome. Then I'd like to work with this JData. Okay, and for now, we're just going to console log J. And you know what? I always do this is JData. I always put a little console log stating where the thing is coming from. So when I see 100 consoles, I know where to go to turn them off. Because after a while, I forget that I have them, and then I have too many. Okay. Now, what do we need to do? Aaron, you had mentioned this before. Now that I'm doing this, what should we be doing? We didn't do it yet. But how about this? Do we expect that this data is going to somehow go into state at some point in time? Yeah, just say yeah. Yeah, it is, right? If it's going to go into state and fetch is going to do the this.set state, what do we need to do?
This dot set state.
We will. I mean, we're not doing it right now, but I was kind of going with the binding. If we know this dot set state is going to go in there, we can do this dot fetch tasks is equal to this dot fetch tasks dot bind this, right? I'm just preparing. I know that this thing, when it gets the data, is going to update state. I know that. You know that. Let's just be proactive and get that done, okay? I mean, it even says here, don't forget to bind this. It's gonna, we didn't add set state here yet. We're being asked to do that. All right, so what's going on here? All right, so let's take a look. Testing it. So, hey, let's test to make sure it actually is working as intended. This isn't where we're going to keep it. Once again, we're going to put it into, you know, this dot's into state. But we're going to get something weird. It's going to tell us this has been blocked by the node cores. So let's just test it. We ran this, right? We have to call fetch tasks first, right? Fetch task isn't being called. Let me see, where are we supposed to be? Oh, sorry. Okay. But for testing purposes, this .testFast inside of render method would do that. All right, so let's test this out. Inside of render method, I'm going to do this .fetch tasks. And let's see, React is running. And was React angry? No. Okay. We didn't get the cores error. All right. Yay. I mean, it's one less error we gotta deal with.
You didn't get the cores error.
Oh, snap. I guess I spoke too soon. You know, and I'm using the same server everyone else is. Yes. So let me do this. I just want to see. Got cores error. We're gonna fix it, obviously. I like that, John. Thanks. Like you didn't get it. I got excited. All right. Who got? All right. I think I messed up the poll there. Cores, error. Yeah, poll's a little off, but it looks like everyone seems to be getting the error. My poll's definitely off. All right, so what's going on? Looks like the majority all got it. All right, so browsers in, oh, you know why? Here we go. I think this is why. I think this is why mine works and yours doesn't. Because once again, if everyone, oh, so I have two no's, Emmy and Flint, it's working, right? You're the only two that it's working for. I think this could be the issue on my machine. Do you see at the very top here, I have this thing called cores, allow control, allow origin, has access to the site. I think possibly this is the reason why. It was a Chrome plugin that I installed. So I'm just going to go turn off the plugin because I want to see if that's why I didn't get the error message, but you're getting the error message. Cores, where's my cores thing? Here. Let's take a look. Cores, the red icon. No,
I think you have a problem, Joe.
What?
I think you have a problem
What do you mean?
with Chrome extensions.
You know, I got a lot of them. I've been doing this a long time. Yeah, I don't see it. It's not finding the cores one, so I don't know. Maybe it's a different name? I don't know. I thought it was an extension. Truly did, unless I'm like not seeing it. All right. Do the extension. But I think that's what's happening here. And that's why I'm able to get it, but you're not. So we need to fix that, right? Apparently, we could install it because I haven't touched the server at all. I haven't done anything different than the server that you had done. I spun this thing up just this morning. Haven't touched it at all. So what we need to do here is cores. We know what that is. Like we've all seen the cores error. I'm sure between beginning of the class and now we've seen cores. We have to fix this. Cores, I think you also saw when we spun up a server without using, spinning up a local server, and we just try to spin up in, when we did React on the first day of React, where we just had React as an index file and a JavaScript file, and we imported React in the script tags, we had that. So configure cores. So Rails makes it easy for us to configure this cores, right? Because if this truly is why mine is working, we don't want that to be what happens on the client machine, because I can't determine every client's going to have that. I can't have a pop-up that says you must install that, so we don't want to do that. So installing the rack cores gem, okay? Open up the 2.app directly. All right, in the gem file, uncomment the gem rack cores. Okay. So we need to go into the to-do API, and we need to go into the gem file, right? And it's saying here it was on line 29, somewhere 29, right here. Line 29. So on line 29, we want to make sure that that is uncommented. Okay, should save it. Okay, now that we've done that, we have to run bundle again because we didn't have that gem before. Okay, so I have to open up the terminal. Let's see where my terminal was. No, to do front end, is this where it is? Looking for the one that I have over here. Where is it? Get all that stuff open up. All right. My machine crashed earlier. Is this the one? I think so. Let me see. I'm just looking for the one that I had. They have the other server up and running also. And I think this is it. PWD. Nope, what is the server again? All right. PWD, here we go. All right, so here's my server, right? ls, I'm in to-do app. I'm going to change in to-do app. Changing directories to to-do API. ls bundle install, and it should, right? Should have done the install. It'll really happen really quick, right? Run bundle. Oh, so it just run bundle too. Sorry. Bundle. Right? That's it. Yeah. Looks like it's cores. Yeah, it is doing. Did it really fast. I guess that was the only one we really needed to do. Okay. Configuring cores permissions. Okay, so now we have to do just a little something else. In the config initializer cores RB file, all right, so we have to go, just gonna move this over to the left. Here, we have to go into the config, boop, initializers, cores RB file, okay? And we just have to uncomment out these lines. Okay. This is where we're going to be using middleware, insert, we're allowing it to do it, resources, headers, these are the methods, right? Okay. Change the origins on line 10 here to be star, okay? So I'm going to say, let's say star here. Considering resources is in single quotes, it should also be in single quotes, right? All right, let us, what's the next thing? Restart your Rails server. Oh, okay, that was easy enough. So here we go. Minute, Rails S, should start, oh, because I already have the other server up and running. So I'm going to turn off the other server. This is the other one. I'm going to go back to this one, start it. Okay, application is starting in development, run Rails surveys for more startup options. So it's telling me a server. It's already running on these ports. Let me just make sure all of my node activity monitor here. Yeah, I got a bunch of node servers. So I'm going to shut off all my node. There's a couple of the React ones might have started up. All right, so here we go. All right, a minute. Rails S. Still. Putting from yeah. Server's already running, so we need to stop the other servers. Let me do this. Is a Ruby server? Oh, here we go. Here's a Ruby server. Okay. All I'm doing is this, in case anybody's interested. I'm going into Activity Monitor, and I'm looking for the name of it. So I'm saying, hey, there's Ruby. I'm going to force quit Ruby. That'll force quit whatever server should or is running. And if I go here, it should start up now. Now it starts up. Now that it starts up, it's back here. So if you're ever like, where's the server? I don't know how to stop it. Go to Activity Monitor, look for it, okay? There won't be any node servers because I shut down all my node, but I have to start up the React server also. And once I do, you'll see a node server there as well, right? So we have our server, right? Okay. Now we should be able to get it, right? So our front end should be able to make calls. Once again, my front end shut down because I shut it down. So I'm going to go and turn it back on. The sector. Let's see, or was it here? So let me start it up. Let me go into the directory where it is. ls change directory to do front end npm start. Boom. All right, there we go, starting it. There's my start. Now, once again, I'm not going to see any of the errors. If you're able to successfully make the Ajax call and notice you can presumably comment out. Okay. are we able to make the call now? So let's do this. Fetching data out any CORS error. Okay? Just give me a confirmation if you're fetching the data without any CORS errors. Sweet. Looks good. Getting a good turnout. Okay. Just goes into, you know, what does the CORS RB mean? Just going to determine what the origins are, where we're allowed to make these requests from. And so this says anything, any site, doesn't matter, allow that site to make a request, okay? If you wanted to, you could limit the sites that were allowed to do this, okay? And then the resources refers to what files you want to allow access to, right? The header methods, so the headers and the methods here. And there's more methods, right? There's things like options, head, things we've never worked with before, and we haven't worked with patch. We use get, post, put, and delete as the CRUD methods, but there's a lot more methods that can be used, okay? Sweet. Is that a thumbs down?
Are we going to do this every time we connect it to the server in the front end?
Yeah. If you want to allow, once again, if your server, right, if you had a Rails backend and you had a front end site with a URL that was consistent, right? You purchased a domain name, your React web server is running on that domain name, then here you could go in and change the star to be the name of that particular URL, and it should be golden, and no one else could make the API call except that URL. But yes, if you need to set up your Rails server as an API server, you have to go through this process. It's just one of those things, okay? Sweet. So let's, what do we got here? You know what? I'm going to say before we jump into maybe a new thing, because we're going to go manipulating our data. It's 3:23. I would say maybe let's take a break, and then we can jump into something new where we're actually going to grab the data, manipulate the data. If you had any errors, let me know. I can try to help you out. Aaron, I see a thumbs down, so I don't know if that means you had an error.
I can't access the information still. I have the course is still being blocked.
Okay, so let's go to break and I'll help you out.
Sounds good.
Okay. Back at 34, so I can help you out. All right. So share your screen.
I was on mute the whole time. I said I gotta miss the step somewhere. I just don't know where.
Okay, so let's figure it out. All right, so you can't fetch. So it's origins. Origins is star. So origins, get rid of example.com. Nope. Get rid of example and put star. Save it. That should work. Okay. Let me take
This
a
has
look.
been the story of my day, Joe.
It's one of those days. One of those days. So let me just see.
You want me to stop Rails and restart it?
Try doing that right now, and I'll take a look and see what's happening with your, what else? Maybe I missed something. Oh, yeah, it does say you have to restart your Rails server. Sorry.
Yep, there it
Good.
is.
Yeah, you're good.
Cool. Thank you.
Just little setbacks, Aaron, little setbacks.
Yeah, it's been one of those days for damn sure.
That's a full build day. Usually full builds.
Yeah, I'm feeling that anxiety.
Okay. All right. You're good now.
Thanks again.
Okay, no worries. Alrighty. So I'm going to head out a little poll here. Tell me how everyone's feeling. You know, these long coding days, full builds can be challenging. That's the word I use, challenging. Sweet. Well, great. I like it. Sometimes we get even give me more on board, but today we're just getting, I feel great. Hanging in there. That's solid. All right. That's what I want to see, troopers. Troopers. Well, later on, there's going to be a little surprise. Not on the lectures, just another little surprise. So keep your spirits up. Let's hit it. Get it back. Take it back to, so we're out of the Rails server. I'm just going to close some of these things here. I got a lot of, this reminds me of the tabs I usually have open in Chrome. So we need to, now that we are getting our data, right? We know that we're getting the data. Cores has been fixed. That's all good. We need to populate our state with that data. Because once state is updated, that triggers the render, and we can pass that data down. So we need a couple of placeholders here in order to do that, right? So in state, in the app, which is the only place it exists right now, we haven't gotten to the form, we haven't done anything with that, is this. So I'm just going to say completed tasks is an array, and to do tasks. Okay, that's it. That's our state. What our state is going to look like. Easy enough. And that state right here is a direct reflection of what we have here, right? I made sure to update the state there. And so our diagram right now is kind of ahead of the curve too, because I've added some more stuff there that we didn't have. All right. So we're going to write a function here. We haven't even like populated the thing yet, right? So it doesn't even look like here we've gone around to populating it. And so we're going to write a function called sort tasks, and that's going to take our task data, you know, as an argument and separate them depending on completed or Boolean. When the data comes in, just remember this, right? Our data is stored in the React server. Right, so if I just, once again, just do the local host and do tasks, here, completed false, 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 right? At some point in time, that data is going to come back to us, and some of those elements are going to be true as completed, and some of them are going to be false. So if that's the case, we need some sort of mechanism here to, when the data comes in, we pump it through this little filter system. And then the filter system then makes the decision on which one of those arrays should get populated with which data set, okay? So let's add here, right? I'm gonna put it under fetch. Now I'm gonna say sort tasks and tasks, right? Okay. The fact that we have tasks here means what? What do you think this means, the fact that sort tasks is taking something in? Where is sort tasks going to get called? Where do you think it gets called? We'll have the code in just a minute, but where do you think sort tasks would be getting called?
Maybe like right after we get the data.
Yeah, like right in here, right? Yeah, that's a great assumption, right? we're getting the data. If fetch tasks is not going to update state directly, then we need to pass the data someplace to here. Just once again, prefacing that something's going to happen. We're making our assumptions. So let's do this. So I'm going to say, hey, let's complete completed tasks equal to an empty array. Okay. Let's to do equal to an empty array. And these are kind of placeholders so that when we do loop through the data, we can just split them up into their corresponding tasks. Awesome. And now we're going to say, hey, tasks, because we're going to get an array of things, dot, for each task. Okay. You don't need the parens here. Like in the code example here, you see the parens. If it's one thing we're passing in, then you don't need the parens. If it was two things, you would need the parens only if we were passing in at least another argument. If it's just one argument, then you do not need it. When it's just one argument, I usually don't. Just cleaner, less code to write. Here we're just going to run conditional logic. If task.completed, let's do completed. Tasks.push the task. And then else, we are going to say to do tasks.push task. Right? Completed task and not completed task.
I think you need to adjust line 42.
This one has to be, yeah, this one has to be tasks plural. That was it.
And then on line 42, I think you need another paren after task. Like that has to be in like a paren.
This here?
Yeah.
It actually does not.
Oh.
If it's a single, so I'll just put a note here.
Oh, that's right. You were just
If
explaining
it's
that.
a single, so single param, then you don't need the parens. And so it could just be task, right? Task, right? If there are two params, then yes. Task index, right? So you don't always need it. Cool. So now we know that these two things should have the data, and we still need a way to get that data to there, right? So awesome. Let's see if there's another plan to this. Now I'm going to take sort tasks is once again, this is a new method. So I'm going to go back here to our thing and I'm going to say, hey, there's a new method and I want to put sort tasks, right? I'll just say sorts tasks based on completed or not, right? That's all. Now I know this is a method here. I know that we have it. I want to keep track of those methods. So also telling us the great do not forget to bind. So here, okay, this dot sort tasks is equal to this dot sort tasks dot bind this. Okay. Once again, there's no like this dot set state or anything like that in there. So binding it, I'm assuming maybe something else is going to call it. All right. So great. That method separates the tasks into two separate arrays, but we didn't set our state. So we're going to create another function called set tasks. So here, another function. Set tasks completed to do. Okay, now this is starting to make sense. Obviously, we have two arrays here, and they look like they kind of correspond to these two placeholders, so I have to assume it's in here that we're going to do this dot set state. And in here we'll say completed tasks completed and to do tasks to do. Okay? And because set tasks is calling this dot states, we definitely have to go up here and bind it, right? This dot set tasks is equal to this dot set tasks dot bind. Okay, so I'm just gonna slack that out. All right, we got this dot set state. So these are the two methods that we just added. Okay. And obviously set tasks is a new method. So I'm just going to go back into our diagram here and say, all right, so here we go. We got set tasks will set or will update state with the two arrays. Okay. And I'm going to put corresponding arrays, right? Because they correspond to completed tasks and tasks. Cool. 4 methods so far in app. 4 of them, right? Now we need to call sort tasks and set tasks, right? So cool. So now back in sort tasks, which is here, we can call set tasks. So we'll pass it on to set tasks. And then over here, we'll call that. So here, after our for each runs, this is where we would do, hey, this dot set tasks completed tasks and to do tasks, right? They'll fit right in. And then here, sort tasks, that's what we're doing. Oh, and fetch tasks, right here. This is where we need to call it. We need to pass that data. And I'm going to leave the console log there. Later on, we may want to see some stuff. So I'm going to say this dot sort tasks j data. Okay. So all we did was really state where when we're gonna call set tasks, this process, and then fetch tasks. Okay. So data really comes in here, gets sorted, and then it gets set. Fetch, sort, and then set. Okay. So now, let's test it. We're able to get through. Just, take a look. Is your app, looks like my app is going through some sort of perpetual thing now. Look at that. It's kind of weird, right? The app just seems like it keeps going. I can clear out my consoles, and the thing is perpetually running.
Did you ever get rid of the call and render?
Oh, yeah. There we go. That's why. Oh, good looking app. You noticed that. I forgot all about that. So now that we have this, I'm going to add a console log here just because I want to see. This is state, just to see. We make the call. Right? Did we call it at any point? Well, this dot state. So let's see. We still don't have it. What happened? Why don't we have the data? Can anyone explain why we don't have the data? I think it may be pretty obvious why we don't have the data. I got some solid methods written.
We're setting the
Okay. John, what do you say?
You're not calling fetch tasks.
Yeah, we're not calling fetch tasks. And if we don't call fetch tasks, so here's a little dilemma. Lots of things trigger state, right? how do I prevent a perpetual loop right now? Where do you think you would call? You're missing a real key thing about React now. So I'm just curious, without this key thing, if you had to look at something like this, where do you think you could call fetch tasks?
On load.
Where's that? Is that a method somewhere? Can I?
Or there's probably some, I don't know, like on page load, do this thing.
Okay, no, you're right. You're absolutely right, Jeremy. Conceptually, that's where you're going, and that's where I wanted you to go. I don't want, what I was looking for is some people might say, I don't know, put it in render. Like, do you understand the flow of things, right? When this component loads, just going to close these views, right? When this component loads, constructor runs, it does its thing. The constructor does what it does here. It loads props, it inherits the thing, it binds the thing. That's the first thing that runs. Then what happens next? What do you think happens then? Any ideas? Constructor finishes doing its constructor-esque stuff. What else happens? What's the next thing that runs?
It runs the render.
Correct. Yeah. So render runs next, right? So if I put here and just say, first constructor runs, then render, right? That's really all that happens. These other methods are custom, and we decide when they run, correct? We make that decision. Well, so React now has a dilemma. It's like, can I give them exactly what Jeremy asked? Hey, do we have this thing that on load one time, you can run this thing just once when the thing loads? React has that as a life cycle, okay? React has so much more, like around every corner, it's like, hey, there's more React. Just do you think you got React down? There's like this whole other world. Let me open up the next chapter in the book of React. So React has lifecycle methods, and I put these here as life cycles. So I did put them as constructor and render, and I'm going to say life cycle methods. Okay, life cycle methods. This component is born into existence. It is updated throughout its life, and then at times components disappear and go away forever. Okay. Just think of a task list item that is its own component. So here, a task list item that is a component, that is a task, and the person deletes the task. What happens to that component? Where does that component go? Any ideas? I had a task that said, teach them React. And I checked it, it's completed. I delete it, it's no longer in the database. What happened to that component? Well, component kind of goes away, right? Part of this life cycle state is this. The life cycle methods in React are things like, there's 3 states. Mounting, updating, unmounted. These are the 3 states of a React component, right? React is mounted, that's why we see things. When we click on things and things change, that's why we see the change. When the thing is removed, it is unmounted. React allows us to make like specific decisions on like, hey, when it's mounted, the first time do this. Cool. Hey, when it's unmounted, I want you to run this last thing because it's the last time I can do this, okay? So there is a React method or React lifecycle called component did mount, okay? There's also, the documentation on React lifecycle states and everything. Like React has changed some of these in their version 16 point, whatever version they're up to. That's version 16, they changed some of these things. But the life cycles and states I'm just looking for where they might have component did mount, component did, yeah. Component did mount, component will mount to life cycle states, okay? And so we could use these things, these components. Component did mount runs after the component output has been rendered to the DOM. This is a good place here to set up a timer, right? I'm not gonna go into the details of all the component lifecycle methods. What I am gonna say is this: component did mount is predominantly used for, especially when you are fetching data, to fetch the data. Because when my app refreshes or is loaded for the first time, I want to go get the data for my application. Getting the data for the application happens in this lifecycle method, okay? And it only happens once, and that's all. Now, lifecycle methods, just in like how you write or where you put these lifecycle methods, I always put the lifecycle methods towards the bottom. Render is towards the bottom, and that's a lifecycle method. And so I'm going to add this new, you know, the one time, run one time only life cycle method, component did mount, okay? This runs once, only once, never more than that, okay? And it's in here that we're gonna make the statement to this dot fetch tasks. Now here's a question. Do you think I need to mount, or do you think I need to bind component did mount? No, Joe. Yes, Joe.
No.
Okay. Why?
I don't know specifically, but I'm gonna assume it's gonna be like render, where on the back end, it's doing something, so you don't have to keep binding it because it's something that's built in already. We're not making our own function.
Yes, that's exactly it. Right? React already knows that these are predefined lifecycle methods. Render is a predefined lifecycle method, okay? And because it's predefined, it kind of mounts it under the hood or binds it under the hood. Component did mount, it binds it under the hood. We don't have to do any of that, okay? Now that I have component did mount, right? This one time, once only method, right? Just gonna make sure you have it too. We got this. Now, if I run the app, look at this. This is state. State has it. Sweet. This is, and see, do you see why I put, you know, this is state and like, so I know what the data is coming from, so I have an idea. I mean, here I can go to the exact line, but now I know, hey, this view that I'm seeing here came from state. This array came from JData. This is state coming from state as well, but it's coming from the same place. So take a look at this. I really want you to see this. Do you see that the first time that this app loads, on line 76, is where I ran this dot set state. And look, state doesn't have completed tasks or to-do tasks, right? JData runs, and JData was inside of fetch. That runs. And then state runs again on line 76, but this time it's got all of the data, okay? So what happens here, the life cycle methods, right? Where would components did mount go here? So I have the life cycle methods, and this is the order that they run. Where would I put it? Molly, where would I put that?
I think I would put it after the render.
Okay, yes, and you're right. Components. Because here, right? This makes sense? This is coming from render, right? So I can even say this. hey, this is state inside render, just so we're clear, right? Run this, did not say, yeah. This is state inside render, our app runs. I don't see anything else. This is coming from fetch, which updates state. The re-render says, oh, state's been updated, okay? So this is just a way to do that. So you have to know that. You have to know component did not is going to trigger a re-render if you update state. And we want that. We want state to be updated because we need that data at some point in time, okay? So these lifecycle methods are important. Okay, there's a whole, if I was just to do React lifecycle methods, and just maybe take a look at a quick image of it. This is a pretty popular image. These are some of the lifecycle methods. Now, can I go to it? Just seeing if I can go to it. If it takes too long, I'm not going to go to it. No, this guy doesn't have the picture. Here we go. Here's the picture. And so we have render right here, constructor mounting. Oh, come on. So anything like this annoys me, and then we're just like, sorry. We leave a site. So let me go this way. Or this way. Maybe this one. It's the same picture. Everyone uses the same picture out there. So here we go. Mounting phase, updating phase, unmounting phase. In the mounting phase, the constructor runs. There's these other ones. These, I believe, are being phased out in React 16.3. Render runs. And then look at the end of mounting, boop, component did mount. In updating, we deal with props, we deal with state, render runs, a couple other things, and then component did updates. And look, unmounting. I can do one last thing as a last attempt by this component to like leave its mark on this world, via component will unmount. It's the last thing, then it's gone forever from the land of wherever the app came from, okay? So this
Hey,
is
real quick, Joe. No, not to interrupt you real quick. I missed, where exactly did you put that component did mount with the fetch task?
I put it just above render.
Just above render, okay, thanks.
Yeah, right here. And once again, it knows to call that first thing. So we don't really have to do anything at any point in time, okay? Oof, it's a lot to React. Muchas cosas with React, right? All right, see if we can get this out. Displaying our data. We got our data, right? We got the data. Now we have to show the data. All right, well, in the end, we know from this app, we still need these numbers, right? These numbers need to be passed down to header, and we need to pass down the data to the task list. Those are two things that we know. In our mockup, I do have here already to-do count is going to be passing down the length of the to-dos and completed count, the length of completed count. So let's get that rocking here. Inside of the constructor, I'm going to create, oh no, inside the header, I'm sorry. Where am I going? Passing down to the header. So here, we are going to pass down to-do count is equal to this dot state dot to-do tasks dot length, and then we're going to send completed count is equal to this dot state dot completed tasks dot length, right? Easy enough. Our header should look like that. That's our header. Passing down two props. Awesome. Let's pass them down, right? Now we pass them down. Let's go and work with that. So here in our LI, so I'm going to do this. So let me just move this over. The fact that I'm going to have more things here, what I like to do, instead of having them all on one line, I like to do this. Split it up so I could add as many methods as I want here. Once again, I'm just changing it visually, not changing any structure. And now I can add anything else I want here. How are we going to do it? Actually, you know what? I'm going to go back only because we're not adding any methods. All we're doing is changing this value. I thought we were going to do another method, but we're not. All we're going to do is here, show the prop. This dot props dot to do count. And this dot props dot complete. I think, oh, you know what? Okay. I think here for the, in the app, just going to go back here. No, they are count. I got them right. I thought I maybe misspelled them. All right. This is what we just did. Okay. And
Joe?
oh, yeah, I just missed the curly brace. Is that what you're going to say?
No, I was going to say I'm getting a cannot read property length of undefined.
Okay, let's take a look. I think I know why. Let's take a look. Okay, why would we get this? This, I'm going to say should be expected as the error.
Okay.
Anybody know why you would get this?
Because when we were originally defining state in the constructor, we're not defining completed tasks and to-do tasks as like an empty array.
Sure. So how about we go to state and we add those things in state, we do that, right? So these two things here, let me go to it's set tasks, right? Set tasks created these things, right? What we should do is have those things here, and we should set them, is it completed task, right? We should set them to empty arrays. Okay? That makes sense? The reason is because React is trying to render something. I just realized here I got rid of my text, so I have to go back and add my completed and tasks. I shouldn't have deleted it, but the reason what's happening here is that React is like, we are passing down or attempting to pass down something that doesn't yet exist. If it does not yet exist, React is going to be like, I don't know what you want me to do. This thing doesn't exist. I just can't make up values for it. So in order for us to make sure that we have something there to see it's either 0 or not, right? If we weren't even running this, if I wasn't even like populating it with anything, if I didn't run components mount right now, if I got rid of this just temporarily, I would get 0, 0 because I haven't populated them with anything. But if I do run it, then I would get, since it runs, 5, 0, right? I'm only going to go back right now because I deleted the text there by accident, right? And that should be completed in to-dos. So I'm going to go back into my header and do to-dos and put completed. I got excited. Okay, I'm just going to add that as text. And there, I'm right back. Sweet. Okay. Did this solve the problem for everybody? And that's an important thing to consider. If you tell React to evaluate something that is not there, well, then React is going to like trip out on you. Okay? The only other way to do that would have been, how else do you think we could have done some sort of evaluation here? Right? What else do you think we could have done to compensate that if we didn't define it ahead of time? Could have done something like, if this dot state dot something is equal to undefined, run this thing, put 0 or put a number, right? We could have had some conditional logic to handle that, okay? If it's null because there's nothing there, or it's undefined. But here it just makes more sense to create these things as placeholders, and they'll be 0, right? If there's nothing, then they're always going to be zeros, okay? Always have a length of 0. Okay. Oof. Man, it's tough coding all day. Telling me, Thad, you tried coding and talking and being, you know, animated the whole process. I'm burning up all my energy. I still got to go teach an evening class after this. All right.
Call it a day, Joe.
What?
Said just call it a day. Call off your class tonight.
Dad, oh my God.
I second this. Tacos and
tacos, get a drink.
That is crazy talk. I get to teach if-else logic tonight. The best kind of logic, conditional logic.
He's very excited about that.
I just love to fun. All right, let's get through this. Let's get through this thing, and maybe we can take a little break here. Task list. Our task list is down here inside of our render. So inside a task list, we're already passing 2 things. Current view, handle view. Could have sworn, I'm not sure why it doesn't show here, but I could have sworn this was at some point in time configured to show handle view. I don't see it here. Maybe it was just missing from the lecture. But we added this, the same time we added these 2, we added this because it made sense, right? So here we're going to add the other 2 properties. To do tasks is equal to, oh, this keeps doing it. This dot state dot to do tasks, okay? And then completed tasks is equal to this dot state dot completed tasks, okay? I'm gonna take these 2, I'm gonna make sure in our app here, right, that these have been updated. The current view is this, handle view, so I don't need these 2. I just need these 2. I'm just gonna move them over. Once again, I want this diagram to be an exact replica of our thought process and our architectural design. So our task list is really that right now. Okay? That's our task. Now we know that we're passing tasks down, right? We know tasks are being passed down. It's a matter of doing something with those views now. So passing these 2 down, just like we did here. Here we're passing down the length of something. Here we're passing down the thing itself, the array itself. So in task list, right here, we have our conditional rendering saying, hey, if it's to do, right, show this div, else show this div. So now if it is to do, we want to loop over the thing if we had stuff to loop over, right? And then instead of rendering just this little, hey, this is to do and this is completed list view, we don't really need that text anymore. What we truly need here is to add a div, right? Because this is what it's telling us. Here's our div. So if it is that, we go to the next line, and in curly braces here, let me get rid of this text because we don't need it anymore. I'm just going to structure this first. All I'm trying to do is do this. Here's a div. Here's the closing div. I know I'm going to have curly braces. Here's my beginning. Here's my end. And then I can do something. I'm also going to do it with this, once again, just to give us some structure, okay? Without adding anything, I can make sense of this before I add anything, okay? If this is true, then we're going to do something. We're going to do the something in here. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to grab this dot props, dot to do tasks, dot map. And this is where we need the double parens because we have two things, task and index. And we need to return, and this is where our task element makes its entry into existence, okay? And key is equal to index, and task is equal to task. Now we're going to error out. Can anyone tell me why we would error out here?
Because we haven't used task yet.
Okay, well that's good. We haven't used it, but what's more important? Before I use it, what?
You haven't imported it.
Imported it, right? So just know that we're going to have to import it. I'm going to finish up with this, but just making notes that the fact that it's not imported means this would crash our server right now probably. Let me see. Look, it's already crashing. Task list is not defined. We're going to finish up. I just wanted to point out that that's what's happening. So if you were like, oh, let me go test this out. Why is that happening? That's why. So completed tasks, dot map, same thing, task, index, task. I'm going to close it, and then I'm going to put whatever I want inside of it. The key, I'm just going to copy this, right? I'm just going to copy this. Getting tired of typing the same redundant stuff out. Right? Looks, I think it looks good. Although I am missing, oh, I'm missing the return here. Look at this. Return. And here, that parens. This looks pretty good. Tab, 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 and tab. All right. Let me copy and paste this. Just in case this whole thing here, there's a lot of room there for fat fingering, especially considering that I just did it. Okay? And the other thing we need to do, I want to get rid of this error right now and import task from components task, right? That should resolve the error. Can't resolve task. Can't resolve components task.
You don't need to do the components since task
oh,
list
it's in
and
components.
task.
You're right. I was thinking, my brain was stuck in, I was in app. Do I need to do this then? All right, is that it? Let me take a look. I always forget. Yeah, it should be it. Yeah, just needed a moment. Okay. It's good. Anybody know why we just have this? This is task component. Any ideas?
Because we haven't touched the task.js file yet.
Yeah, we haven't, right? We're rendering 5 of them, but we're not passing them we are passing them the props now, but it hasn't been configured to show the actual task element name itself as of right now. So that's something down here we need to do inside of task, okay? We just have one more thing. One more tiny little thing, and then we're done with this. So let's do this. Task, all right. So I have the task name. I'm just gonna kind of follow suit with what's here. So I'm gonna maybe move this down a little bit so I can see like here. Task name, task, and then this. Let me just take a look and see what the styling is too. I think the styling might change just a little bit. We have task. Inside of task, that's where it's gonna go. Okay? So here, I'm gonna have all of this, okay? So, if I do a div here with a class name is equal to task item, we are gonna give it the name, this.props.task.task item. Task item is the key. I mean, task item is what stores the value of the actual task itself. Okay. And we also have little buttons too. If I go back here and I go here, we have these little icons. These icons also need to be there too, right? One needs to be clicked on, one needs to be checked to do completed, and one needs to be checked on to remove it completely, right? So ours don't even have that right now. So we need that. So let's do div class name is equal to task actions. Okay, I'm just going to close the div so I know. And then, hey, this dot props dot task dot completed. Okay. Do this thing. All right, what do you want me to do? I want you to have an icon called class name. And these icons were imported earlier. When I had set up the server for you, I have a link tag that imports some Bootstrap fonts or allows us to use fonts. So I'm going to say incomplete, far, FA, check, square. Okay, this is a font from Bootstrap, okay? And now I'm gonna, just for the sake of it, I'm gonna copy this thing. I'll just rename it. So here, the class name is not gonna be incomplete. It's gonna be complete, far, FA, square. Okay? And the one thing that I did forget here is putting, I don't like the way this is laid out. You see how the question mark is here and then the colon is there. If you're going to write this, try to write it with some consistency, right? If I'm going to write this, then I'd like the colon to be here. I'm sorry, the question mark to be there. And I'd like the colon to be here. That way, when I look at this, it makes sense. And I would expect, like if we were going to come up with some sort of style guide, that's how you write it. You just don't put the question mark at the end, at the beginning, wherever you feel like putting it, you put it where we say it should be. Otherwise, it gets hard to read. Okay? And then the last one.
So even if it requires a semicolon to go with it?
Well, when would it require the semicolon here? Oh, I'm sorry. If you're saying like there's a semicolon here.
No, man, I'm giving you a hard time about
Oh, snap. I was like, what are you talking about, Lauren? You trying to throw me for a loop?
Your best practices up until the semicolons.
Oh, yeah, no, I threw out the semicolon because you don't need the semicolon. That's like a thing of the past. In the way back machine. All right. This looks like our task.
You post on Stack Overflow, then they might kill you.
Yo, be careful. Post on Stack Overflow. You better be ready to have your code spotless. They will rail right into you for it. They did it to me. Maybe they lightened up a little bit. In all honesty, if you're posting React code, no one's going to expect semicolons. They're not going to look down and be like, oh my God, I'm missing semicolons. They don't care anymore. It's almost like second nature to write React without semicolons. So let me go here. React, look at it. Boop, boop, boop. That's fun. You know what's funny? I was telling my girlfriend last night how, I don't know, you guys posted that I do the boop beep thing, right? And I told her that, and I was like, she was like, yeah, you do it. I was like, serious? She's like, you just did it 5 minutes ago. She was just like, you just did boop. And I was like, no way. That's super funny. I do things I don't even know I'm doing.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
I have this props to do task dot map is not a function.
Okay. So if you had to just off the top of my head, when I hear that something is not a function,
right?
What's the first thing that we could kind of deduce? Okay. Just trying to like troubleshoot in general. Troubleshooting in general.
I guess friends or something missing.
Okay.
Or...
Here, watch this. String s.map, right? And I'm just going to do that. Map is not a function. What am I trying to run map on?
S.
Okay, and what data type is S?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm hoping you get it. I'm not really sure. I'm just hearing. All right. What that tells me is you're not passing down to the thing an array. If it was a true array and I did dot map on a real array, undefined is not a function. All right. So I need to actually put something in here, maybe undefined, or maybe run the mapping construct itself. But if it's like the thing that you're running on isn't a function, then that means that what you pass down isn't. So is it possible, and I'm guessing it's in task list, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to follow it up. So my logic is this. You're passing down to do tasks and completed tasks, correct?
And completed, yeah, correct.
Okay. I'm going to go one step up now because I don't think the problem is here as so much as it is inside of app. And I'm going to guess maybe the problem is here. Does your state contain those two things?
Completed tasks, to do tasks, yeah.
You do contain that?
Mm-hmm.
You contain them as arrays?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So then my next thing would be for troubleshooting is that maybe you misspelled these things. If you're passing down arrays, that should work. We can take a look. If you want to share your screen, why don't we take a quick look? Once again, we haven't really troubleshot.
Yeah.
Seems like everyone's hitting it out of the park today, or you're just like.
Yeah, I don't know.
Share your screen then. Let's take a look. I'm fine. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. So this dot props dot current view, and then we got this div. This dot props. Okay, so this dot props is not a function. This dot props dot to do tasks. Okay. Now I'm following it through. Like that's the error, and then it says an app set state. I'm getting maybe this dot set state. Oh, so here, this is what I think. Yeah, right. Do you see the error message? Before you do anything, though, look at the error message. Look at the second error, the warning saying app set tasks. It doesn't know what to do with this dot set state. And because it doesn't know what to do with this dot set state, the only other thing I can make an assumption is it wasn't bound. Take a look in your app. Is it bound in your app? It is. Is it?
Wait on. I'm bounding the completed tasks.
No, you were bounding the set. I think it was set tasks, and it looks like you did bind it.
Can you expand your set tasks function? You're setting, instead of actually setting it to the variables, you're setting them to strings.
Oh, snap. Yeah. Look at that.
Oh. Okay.
And if you actually go back to the web page before you change it, it actually shows you that in that second part Joe was pointing out, on 55 and 56, there's strings there.
Yeah, it's good looking out. You know what's funny is, Kristen, I'm looking at the same error you're looking at, and my brain is already jumping to, oh my God, we have to bind it. You probably didn't bind it, right? That's the first thing that I thought. That's the first thing Jeremy thought. But looking at the whole error message, probably the best option before you start going crazy looking for other things.
So is it then I have to set it to this?
You have to set it to this. You see how completed and to do are being passed in?
Yeah,
that
right.
those are the actual parameters. You need to set completed tasks to completed without string and to do without the strings. They have to be variables, not strings of text.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Look at that. It's a Christmas miracle right there.
Thanks.
Sweet. That's awesome. All right, good. Seems like everyone's doing a pretty good job of keeping up today. Once again, it's a lot of stuff. This is muchas things to go over when it comes to React. You know, just to say like, oh, here's a component lifecycle, and then, you know, to kind of browse over it without going a little bit into depth so you have context. You know, I feel the need to go just give you just that much. All right. Why don't we do this? It's 4:30. Why don't we take a break? 4:30. Come back at 4:41. 4:41.
Hey, Joe, can you stay on and help me with mine?
Sure.
Okay.
Of course. Why don't you share your screen? I'm just going to Slack Jerica real quick, but yeah.
Okay. Well, the only thing that's off about this one is I jumped ahead at the
What?
beginning of the day. So the CSS, the CSS isn't the same because I was following the notes and so I can copy and paste the files. So it's going to look a little bit funky in that sense. But besides that, I've been following along with you.
Okay.
So,
show me this.
yeah. So this is what it looks like, but it's just my list won't display. Like I get the components when we just put them in without all the stuff showed. And then when we changed it, all the text went away. So it's just empty. And then I don't know which file you
So
want to
I'm
look.
looking, so when I'm looking right here, don't move, don't move. Just stay where you're at. So on line 70, I see the color coding.
70.
Yeah, on line 70. Do you see how the color coding is different?
That's just Sublime. That's how it all looks. So don't, it's just annoying stuff. Sublime's not used to all this. So it's all funky like that. So it's kind of a pain. Like in this one, I think.
Oh, I remember you telling me. You're telling me.
Yeah, and then it didn't even have anything to do. It looked commented out, but it didn't. It's telling me that's not supposed to be in that spot, but it is.
Got it.
So
Okay. Yeah, I
you
remember.
can't.
All right. So let's go back to, you're not getting any errors because the thing is working. You're just not seeing the task items themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to, once again, take a quick look at mine again and see what it should look like. All right. So yours is to-do list, and then yes, another one, and then to-do and completed. So to-do and completed should have been to the top right. I'm just trying to see where the things are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just in the middle. And
Right, so-
the amount to do and completed showed up when we did that.
And I also see that maybe because to-do and completed don't even have their numbers updating either.
Yeah.
So let's.
It connected to the data though.
Okay. If
Like I have it.
The data.
I have it in the console log.
Okay. So let's take a look. Make
Because
sure.
I even had an issue with that and I accidentally didn't call it, but then I did. So yeah. I have all of it.
So you got all your data there. So then let's go and take a look at, so that those two props, let's just assume those two props are being passed down, as on 73 and 74, at least those two numbers are being passed down as this dot state to do tasks dot length and that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Let's go into header and just take a look at header and see if header has those things configured. You don't have them. Oh, I don't see what's all the way to the right on line 17 and 18. Oh, you do have count. Yeah, you do have this dot props dot to do count and this dot props dot completed count. So what I would suggest is this. Let's do this. Go back to your app.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to test something. Go
Okay.
On line 66.
66.
I want you to put a console log there and say, this is state. So console log, and then in the console log in quotes, just put this is state. And then after the quote, put a comma and put this dot state. All right. Now go back, run this thing, go to developer tools, look at the console. And let's take a look. So this is state, and you have, so you have completed tasks is nothing, and to do that, you have it. So it does look like they are, I'm just confirming that they look like arrays, they're coming back as arrays. But you know what did not happen? So here's an interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when I did it, I'm going to Slack you the results of when I had done it. Okay?
Okay.
And I'm going to show you here. And I'll put it in, I'm going to put it in the general Slack channel also.
Okay.
But now, take a look at, now when mine runs, right? Mine runs and it says this is state inside of render, it runs once.
Mm-hmm.
JData runs, and then this is state inside of render runs again. Does yours do that? Go back to your console.
My console?
Yeah, go back to the develop. Yeah, go right there. Do you see it happening? Do you see three things running? I see this is state, this is JData, but I don't see, I don't think that it's not running, it's not re-rendering.
Mm-hmm.
Expand the state object again that you have there in developer tools. Expand that. See how they're empty?
Yeah.
And you see how the next line you get data that you console log?
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't your component doesn't re-render. So I'm going to assume fetch task. So I'm going to follow this through. This dot set state goes there. Go to fetch tasks. Go to the method called fetch tasks. Oh, so here, line 36.
Yeah.
You're console logging, but you're not sending the data.
Okay.
Yeah, so your fetching tasks should look like this. I just slacked it out. Yep, I just slacked it. Take a look at the Slack.
Okay.
And it should look like that. Do you see how we're, instead of the console log?
Uh-huh. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, and then Jada. Okay, let's see. What happens? Okay. And then, yeah, it's all funky because of the CSS.
Okay.
Was auto on it, but I see now.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You got it.
So it's just because the fetch, I didn't call the
Yeah. You didn't call the fetch.
the tasks. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Sweet.
Okay, thank you.
You are all good. Okay. So here we go. I almost feel like torture, torturing you, working you through this React madness. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a step back. There's a lot. There's 3 additional lectures. That's a lot to cover for today, though. I got to be honest. Doing the architectural design this morning and trying to work through that, Arlia was kind of emphasizing that, and I was emphasizing it for a good point. I expect to see something like that as part of the project. As you work through it and you talk about your final project, I'm going to expect that you produce something like that, okay? I put a lot of time and effort into it. I think it makes sense, and it's going to help the team work it through. You know who else is going to help? When you come to me for help, and I'm like, show me your architectural design so I can kind of work through it on my own, like what's going on? And you're like, I don't really have it. So now you know what I have to do? I have to look through all your code. I got to go to this component, follow that component. It's a lot more work for the people that are trying to help you also. If I know that you put forth the effort to think it through, then I know I can help you better than just like you just slam the stuff together. You don't really know what's going on, yet now I'm expected to know what's going on, right? So I got to help you, but first I got to understand what the hell's going on before I can help you, okay? So we spent some time with that, and once again, I still think it's important. What I want to do now is we were going to break out early today for a good reason. But before we break out for that good reason, before Jerica comes on to give you the amazing good news, I am, once again, as part of the whole feedback, give me more and more feedback, I just slacked out the exit ticket for today. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to fill it out. Once that's done, we'll have Jerica come on, and she will deliver you, oh, the wrong channel. Okay, hold on. Jerica just told me. Oh, you form. Okay. Did I? Oh, Jerica just did. Okay. Jerica, you're amazing. See? I'm just slacking it out all over the place. Okay. And click on the thumbs up when you're done. We'll give you, maybe 10 minutes.
All right, cool. So I think that was enough time. So before I go ahead and announce the good news, I guess there's one thing that I did kind of want to talk about really quick, just because I'm not sure how much it was talked about this morning, but it's kind of important for you guys to know when you move into like your projects and everything. So let me share my screen really quick. All right, so you'll notice when you were doing the build this morning, of course, you guys set up like a given Rails app already for you. So we already gave you all the backend. We set up everything for you. All you had to do was, do the whole gem install and fix cores yourself. And you were treating the Rails backend as an API. So one important thing to note, though, is if you're going to create a Rails API, you actually have to kind of tell Rails that you want it to be an API. Otherwise, if you noticed when you were doing configuring cores earlier, you might have noticed in the notes if you're reading along, Rails, if you set up Rails like how you've kind of been taught the past week, if you don't set it up with like an API flag and everything like that, then it won't let you configure cores the way we did today. So in order to make Rails an API, there's just one little kind of thing that you have to do differently. So when you generate your new Rails project to, again, create your backend API, you have to run, well, so far, this is what you guys have been running. You've just been running like Rails, new app name here, you're setting your database as Postgres, and you're skipping Git. But again, you're gonna need to make your Rails backend an API so that it'll just serve the data to you like you guys were dealing with it today. So in order to do that, you have to kind of change your command a little bit just to add this API flag. So you just have to say Rails new, whatever the name of your app is, and then you have to give the API flag, and then everything else is as normal. So -d Postgres, just to set up your Postgres database. Basically, the API flag is just, again, telling Rails that you only want it to be an API. So it's just going to set up the Rails project to, well, serve like JSON and stuff like that, as opposed to, having like public folders or anything like that. So that's what the API flag is going to do. And again, it's also just going to allow you to configure cores the way that you did earlier. So if you notice, like if you go back to any of the apps that you've built last week when you were learning Rails, if you try to find that cores.rb file, or if you go into the gem file and you try to find that rack cores gem that you configured today, you'll notice that it's not there. That only occurs when you put the API flag. So again, when you're creating your own projects and everything, make sure you put on that API flag. All right, so yeah, that's pretty much it though. Again, if you need kind of a refresher on that, just go back to today's, which one is it? The very first one, the very first lecture note from today. So you can read a little bit more about that there. But yeah, so for the good news, I guess, let me go ahead and post that in Slack. You guys are gonna just have your group project. Well, we're gonna give you guys the group project today. We're gonna give you your pairs today as well, so you guys can talk, and you guys won't have homework tonight. So that is right there. The good news is you won't have any homework. You'll just kind of get your pairs and you can talk about your group project, and we'll do approvals tomorrow. So let's go ahead and take a look at the markdown really quick. So I'm sure you could guess what your group project is going to be. Of course, you're just going to be building a full CRUD app again, but this time with the new tech stack. So of course, React and Rails is going to be your tech stack. So the projects will be a little bit shorter this time. So the group will be pairs instead of like 3 people in a group. So, hopefully less chance of, like merge conflicts and things like that, and getting used to the team. So I'll post the pairs at the end after I'm done announcing everything though. So the attendance, of course, tomorrow you will still have lecture to finish this up. Of course, we still need to go through creating, deleting, and updating the data. So still come tomorrow, 10 a.m. as usual. But after that, of course, it's regular project week. So next Monday, Tuesday, there's no class, except for, of course, outcomes at 4:30 on Tuesday. And then the project will be due on Wednesday. So you will be presenting Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. All right, so again, shorter turnaround time. So we've given you smaller groups. Stand-ups, again, like last time, they're not required, but we would like you to consider them, just to keep track with what you guys are doing. Of course, now that you're going to be just 2 people, it might be easier to just, Slack each other, check in really quick. But if you still want to test out stand-ups, that's also not a bad idea. So technical requirements, again, it's just going to be a full CRUD app built with a Rails backend. So your Rails backend, again, should just be serving JSON API. So again, make sure you're doing the -- API flag. It should have all CRUD operations available across your models. So you must have at least 1 model. So if you only have 1 model, make sure you have full CRUD on it. Then your React front end, or your front end, should be built with React that consumes your Rails API. And your Rails, both of the projects should be deployed online via Heroku. So make sure both of them are deployed online. And then you should also have 2 different Git repositories for it. So you're going to have a separate repository for your Rails backend, and then you're going to also have a separate repository for your React frontend. So you're going to be Git pulling, pushing to 2 different Git repos. And then, of course, same as last time, make sure everybody is committing at least once per day, making sure everybody's working on it. Consider using a daily tracker like Trello or the GitHub issues projects board, whichever one. And then, of course, create a README file that at least includes a link to your hosted working app. And then again, the presentations will be next Wednesday. So same as always, 5 to 10 minutes in length. Every group member should talk during the presentation. And we also want you guys to answer some of the following questions. They are similar to the last ones, if not identical, but we want you guys to kind of talk about the differences like in both group experiences. Right. And then down here, of course, is just the recommended features, not mandatory, but if you finish all of that, like you reach MVP right away, of course, consider adding more features such as whatever is listed here. So again, we still have class tomorrow, so the meeting with the instructors will not be until after the lecture is done tomorrow. So the instructors will be either me or Joe. And again, you'll see who your instructor is when I post the actual pairs in Slack. But yeah, the project approvals will be tomorrow, so you guys can get started tomorrow and of course over the weekend. And before you meet with your instructor, I didn't put it here yet because I was just putting this up now, and Joe just mentioned it, but like Joe was saying earlier, before project approvals tomorrow, please be sure that you create like the whole architecture layout thing like you guys did this morning. So the architectural design that you set up to like set up your whole React app and everything like that. Please be sure that you have one of those ready before project approvals tomorrow. So you and your partner should work on that together. Like again, that you did this morning, the activity you did this morning. That's technically not homework, you can do it tomorrow as well. But before you meet with your instructor, again, aside from that, just make sure you guys have an idea ready and that architectural layout ready. And then we'll meet with you guys tomorrow afternoon. Submitting your project, same as always, just fill out the Google Sheet. Again, this is gonna be due before next Wednesday morning. And then just some notes here on file setup, but it's pretty much similar to how you guys had to set it up for project 3. Right, and yeah, that's pretty much it for the project. Any questions about that?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when you say like we're supposed to have done before we meet, like what do you mean? Just like create React app up, or like what exactly?
No, just like what you did this morning, the architectural design, like the one that Joe kept referencing.
Yeah, like the layout, like almost. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think Joe can chime in, Jerica. Just that basic architectural design, like what are the components going to be? If you have an idea of state, if you have an idea of props, if you have the idea of what methods are going to be passed down, just try to think it through, right? I just want to see the architecture. I want to see that you thought the thing through. You know what's being passed down. It's going to make it easier for you to build it. Trust me. Okay, I've seen this happen dozens of times already over the cohorts. That architecture can be key to you making sure the process has been thought out. Okay? That's it.
My question real quick was in regards to like the GitHub repo, you were talking about 2 different repositories. So when we've made projects in the past, we're on GitHub, we'll create a project called foobar, and that creates a folder on our computer when we clone it, you know? So inside that foobar folder, could we have our 2 separate folders? Is that what you mean?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
you could, yeah. Yeah, so you can create a whole folder that's just like whatever your project name is. So for example, if it was foobar, you could have that. And then inside you should have 2 separate folders. So like foobar front end, foobar back end, both of those.
You have your Rails folder and your React front end folder.
Yeah, so
Okay.
kind of like the setup was today as well.
Right.
But just make sure both of those are separate GitHub repos and not the parent foobar is a repo.
Okay, so that's I'm still confused.
All right, let me open up today's full build. What's today? 11/4.
Yeah.
All right, so to-do app, let's
That would be
pretend this
like-
isn't inside of a GitHub repo, but this right here, if you had this on your computer and it's
Yeah.
holding your backend and your front end, this folder should not be a GitHub repo. Inside, you can have your API and your front end, but this one should be a GitHub repo and this one should be a GitHub repo. So you'll have two separate ones, two whole separate repos.
So they would not.
Does that make sense?
So like
No.
no. I'm
So
just trying to
then
think
when
about like
you-
how I'm going to create this.
Yeah, so it's kind of like how you were building it today, right? We had our to-do API is separately from our to-do front end. Before, like when we did Angular and all of that, we had just our project all in one folder. This
Right.
time you're going to have two separate folders. You're going to have an API and then you're going to have a front end. So then what's going to happen is you're just going to create your JSON, your Rails API as like, again, just an API that's serving up JSON. And then you're going to deploy this onto Heroku. So you're going to have technically kind of like your own API online. So just kind of like how you hit JService or OMDB as a URL to get stuff, that's what you're going to do on your front end. So instead of doing localhost 2000 or like / whatever, you're going to have to reference your deployed API online.
So they'll have like two different project names on Heroku. One will be
Yeah.
strictly just for the API, which you'll use when you access it during the React fetch stuff.
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
your React will actually be the program or the website that you go to actually run your app.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're going to have, yeah, two separate GitHub repos, two separate Heroku deployments.
Okay.
So that when you do your fetch, all you're going to do is put your project URL in here instead. Any other questions? All right, so I'm going to stop sharing and I'll go ahead and post the pairs. Again, your instructor will either be me or Joe. Matt is on vacation, so he's not here. So it's just going to be me or Joe. And again, we'll approve tomorrow, so your instructor will reach out tomorrow to approve. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today. If there are no other questions, you guys are totally free to go. If you do have any questions, though, you can stay behind or I'll be around on Slack until 6 as well. All right, so we'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, I'm going to assume everyone here doesn't have a question. Are you guys good? Okay, I'll end the meeting now and I'll see you guys tomorrow.